Welcome back to the Nothing But Sports podcast. I'm Joey Lavelle. That is Briggs McLemore, and we are back after another hiatus. Hopefully, we will be posting consistently from here on, as we are in the middle of America's pastime. But the World Cup has made it not so much America's pastime. You've had these off seasons in the NHL and the NBA going wild, and golf's obviously carrying the boats as well. So much to talk about in the last month and a half, like 6 weeks. And so we're going to start with it because this past weekend, we just had a golf major championship happen. And so we're going to touch on that as the Open supposed to be one of those majors that plays a little bit harder. And we had a record breaking three rounds from players being 62 under. And so, Briggs, we'll go ahead and get your thoughts as the golf connoisseur on the Open, and congrats to Ryan Fox for winning his first major.
So, quick correction. They technically weren't record breaking. They were record tying for the lowest scores to par for a major championship. So don't want all the nuts out there to be like, oh, that's not correct, because God knows they love commenting on that. But again, you talked about it being the scores being low to par. And we saw three people shoot those 62s. I think Ryan Fox is really the only guy who's able to follow up the 62 and kind of hold it out and play well. A lot of those guys would shoot 62 and then come back and do absolutely nothing the next 2 days. And so congrats to Ryan Fox. His first major, became the third guy from New Zealand to win a major. And so obviously New Zealand's pretty psyched about that. But you got to feel for Cam Young. He's kind of been, him and Scotty have kind of traded spots as the guy who's been number 2 this year. Cam Young had a great early start to the year. I think he had a couple wins. It may have been last year, though. I'm not entirely sure. Time's just kind of mending all together. But I think he had one win early this season. But still, he came out Sunday and just let it all go. Came in with a 64 and then had to sit in the clubhouse waiting for hours on whether or not he was going to play. And then it gets down to Ryan Fox going down 18 and Cam Young sitting there on the driving range getting ready for a potential playoff. And 18's been the hardest hole all weekend. All right, I guess all week for that matter. But Ryan Fox birdies it, and I think on Sunday there were only 3 birdies entering into the final grouping. And so Cam Young, another second-place finish for this year. And then Sam Burns, who I was like, oh, this dude's on fire going into Sunday. 2-stroke lead, and then comes out and fires 3 bogeys in the first couple holes, and that just really took him out of it. And as someone who plays golf very consistently, when you come out and shoot those first couple bogeys and you get in your head and it's like, damn, like I really choked this. It's like, it's so hard to recover from that. And he stayed in contention. I mean, he had a shot going into those last couple holes to get up there and at least into that potential playoff, but just wasn't able to pull through it in the end. And then obviously Scotty's been that closest guy to Tiger to where it's like, okay, Scotty's 4 or 5 shots back entering into the weekend. What is he going to do? Are we going to see that Scotty that's just comes out in the weekend, just dominates? Or is he just going to kind of just float around and kind of do whatever? And he played good, but it wasn't the greatness that we've seen from him. And that's kind of been his MO for this year, is that it's been, okay, he's played really good golf. I mean, he's up there at the top of the leaderboard damn near every week. The problem is he's just not that number 1 guy. He's made the most money this year, but somehow still has very few trophies to show for it. And so seeing him kind of just float around again, I mean, another good performance. He's going to rack up FedEx Cup points, but still, as someone who enjoys seeing Scotty win, I would like to see him get across the line again. And then Tommy Fleetwood, the hometown hero, returning back to, I can't remember where it was, what the name of the city was it was in, blanking me real quick, but he had quite the crowd following him on Sunday. And I believe he started it out on Sunday with like a 62, 63-foot putt that he drained, and the place just went bonkers. So overall, I think it was a very good viewing experience. But again, watching like the U.S. Open and the Open are the two courses I expect absolute like carnage from. I mean, we talked about this earlier today, but to see them go and shoot 62s, like totally fine with seeing a 62 with the PGA. Really not ever going to happen at the Masters, but that seeing that at the Open, I was a little disappointed. I mean, it was very fun to watch, but it's like, man, I would love to see them kind of out there shooting 74, 75s, making them feel like the average golfer does. So that's just personal preferences there.
So a couple notes I'll mention real quick. Um, this is Fox's first major, right?
Yes.
Kind of came out of the woodwork. He was like, he going into the weekend, he was like plus 50,000 to win. And so just a crazy comeback just in general. I think it was plus 7,500 going into the tournament. But so that's crazy in and of itself. And then on Cam Young, I remember a time earlier this year where it looked like Cam Young was never going to lose another golf tournament. And it was like, Cam was just on fire. He had a couple of wins this season. And then it kind of just fell off. I think around the time of the U.S. Open, like right before then, is when he fell off. And then for Scotty, he has not won a tournament since January. And it is July 22nd today, 23rd or 24th when this gets released. And yeah, Scotty's only won one tournament. It's so weird because we all recognize how good Scotty is and how good he golfs every week. But somehow, some way, he just gets beat every week. Someone is always just that one better than him every week. It's not the same person. Scotty's still the best golfer and the most consistent in the world, but he somehow gets beat every week, and it's just weird. And now major season's over, where Scotty did not win a major this year, and it's kind of a weird space. I feel like for Scotty, it's where we all recognize he's the greatest golfer in the world, bar none, but he's still in that weird space where he's only won one tournament this year. It was the Waste Management, I want to say. And now he's majorless this year. It's just kind of a weird spot. So I'll read that. And then one more thing. I don't know on this. I don't know. I don't know the rule. I feel like it got blown out of proportion in general. Your analysis on what happened with Bryson and just like everything surrounding it, where Bryson threatens to not play and then ends up playing, and then Rory calls him performative, and I kind of feel like that's the pot calling the kettle black. But just your overall opinion on the penalty, and the fallout of it.
So first off, massive congratulations to Bryson. Finally makes a cut at the majors for this year. And he was up there towards the top of the leaderboard after the first day, and they got slapped with the penalty, dropped him back 2 strokes, went from like second to tied for 5th, and kind of never really, I don't want to say recovered, but never really was back up near the top of the leaderboard. As per the penalty goes, I think it's a crappy ruling. To say that he improved the like swing path by kind of like walking like I've watched hundreds of rounds of golf on TV, like with the tournaments and everything. Try and watch it almost every weekend. Every single pro is going to go and stand behind the ball and kind of game plan. Hey, where do I want to put this? How do you expect him to walk around this also? And even there's clips from before he got there. They had volunteers over there trampling around looking for the ball. So I don't know how him walking around his ball trying to figure out where his shot's going to go is going to intentionally improve the lie of the swing. And I get, okay, he was ever so, and I can point out exactly kind of what step they're saying is, oh, this is like improving a lot. But for the RNA to go and call this after his scorecard is signed, and for him to be the only player in his group on that hole to be in the rough, like the fescue there, and for the like the rules guy that was following them, or like the marshal that was following them, to not be over there like monitoring that, and to be like, hey, call that then. I think that's a major mistake by the RNA. I think it's after the fact. It inevitably didn't really. I don't think the fescue ever came into play. I don't think that him stepping on it even knocked it down all that much. It kind of came right back up. I think it's an awful call in the RNA. I think that there's some like, hey, what can we slap this guy with kind of feeling there, but that's just me. I think, and I'm not the biggest Bryson fan by any stretch of the imagination. Um, I don't hold it like he's just kind of there in my opinion. Don't hate him, don't love him, but for them to kind of hit him with that, I thought was extremely unnecessary. I thought it wasn't really a fair ruling, but yeah.
Anything on the fallout with Rory calling him performative and then
Um,
Bryson threatening to not play and then ending up deciding to play?
Bryson holding everyone else hostage because they can't release tee times for the next day until he's like, okay, I'm going to play or not. That's kind of screwed up, especially because he didn't do it until like 10 o'clock at night. And there's dudes that have to go off at like 7 a.m. So that's kind of screwed up for those guys to not know when he's got to go off. Um, so he's fucked up for that. Kind of that's where he's really wrong in this situation. Rory calling him performative, I think, is extremely hypocritical as someone who's thrown his clubs into the water numerous times after a bad shot or something. So, I mean, to say, oh, he's done that, and then for Rory, and I mean, I know there's other players who have thrown clubs in the water, but I don't really think that calling someone performative and then that be what your stance is particularly proper. That's the right word for it. But yeah, that's interesting stance on it by Mr. McElroy.
Yeah, so just kind of I just think it's a bad situation. Rory is definitely performative. I think it's in the eye of the beholder. But we'll move on from the Open. Like I said, congrats to Ryan Fox for the win. We'll move on to some NHL all season. Anaheim, the Anaheim Ducks, who I am very close to the Anaheim Ducks. I live in Southern California. Honda Center is right next to me. So, Briggs, I'll let you take it and just your overall thoughts on Anaheim's offseason.
Okay. I don't know how. I don't know how the GM still has a job. That's unbelievable to me. Um, you've got the whole situation with Leo Carlsson in the offer sheet. You've got McTavish being traded out. Was he traded or did he leave as a free agent? Let's see.
Who?
McTavish. I
Uh,
think he was traded.
he was traded.
Yeah. Um, so I don't know, and he was a what second or third? Eight, no, he was eighth on the team in points. So obviously that's a little bit of a hit to the offensive production. They weren't able to re-sign John Carlson, who would have been able to significantly help a struggling defense there. Or at least not struggling defense, but like the power play, which was second to last in offensive ability. And John Carlson's a very good power play quarterback. So being unable to re-sign him, and given part of that was just him wanting to go back east. And that was it, again, as a Caps fan, I didn't ever really want to see Carlson leave, but we got a pretty good trade in that one. And then the whole Leo Carlson offer sheet, I'll let you take that one. Um, that's as someone who's there and someone who's been to a plethora of Ducks games, how do you feel about kind of the Flyers' pettiness in forcing Anaheim's kind of hand and kind of screwing them over for future contracts?
So obviously, this is old news. Carlson gets off-sheeted the 5x18 with very front-loaded, where $39 million of that $90 million goes in the first 370 days or 366 days. So that's a big deal, right? And it really hamstrings the Ducks, cap-wise. Now, you kind of had to. And we were talking about this while it was happening. You kind of had to. Where number one centers are very hard to find. And Leo Carlsson, I think, has the potential to be a top 8 player in the league, I would say. Close to that. He was the number 2 pick in 23. And so, if you haven't listened to Friedman's podcast, go listen to that, because he kind of lays out the timeline. And everyone's throwing Verbeek under the bus for not signing him. And then Carlson's agent, I cannot remember his name, he's blanking me right now, said they were kind of tabling all the offers. And so Verbeek offered 10.5 a year in September, didn't say the term. Leo's camp said no. And so we will fast forward all the way to the end of the season. And Verbeek, after the Ducks got eliminated, wanted to pick up offers. They were like, let us have some time to breathe. Like, right after we just got eliminated from Vegas the next day, like, let us have some time. His final offer, so Leo received the offer sheet, and they did not tell the Ducks when they received it how much it was. And so they was like, the Carlson went to the Ducks and said, give us one more offer. We have received an offer sheet. Didn't tell him how much. And so the final offer was 12. Okay. And then Leo's camp counters with 15. The Ducks said no. And now you are stuck paying $18 million, and it's a front-loaded contract, which is that's a huge issue here when you have to re-sign Gauthier, when you have to re-sign Lacombe, when you have to re-sign all these guys. That's a huge issue. No, it was a plane outside. It caught me off guard. But it's a huge issue when you look at this cap. In the cap, I think if you look at the percentage of cap, because everyone's trashing this offer, whatever, or this contract for the Ducks, and Leo for it, whatever. One, if you're 21 years old, I'm 21 years old right now, you're 22, I'm not saying no to $90 million. Pretty much no matter who it is. But, lost my train of thought. But, if you look at the percentage of cap that it's going to take, it's not that far off from what Crosby took after his first contract. It's not that far off. I think Crosby's was like 12%, and Leo's is like 13.5%.
I think it's 15%. I saw that post.
18, whatever 18 divided by 104 is. Something like that. Alright, whatever. I don't care. But it's not super far off. Or Crosby's might have been a little bit higher, because I think Crosby took 9.7 for his first contract.
17.3 is 18 divided by 1.
It's not that bad, though. Especially, the cap is projected to go up another $20 million in the next 4 or 5 years. So it's not going to end up being that bad of a contract, especially if Leo becomes the guy that you're anticipating, because hockey players don't develop until they're like 24. So, and then you have, they're arguing with Miniyukov, and then after the offer sheet gets pushed to Carlson, right after they sign him to the Brant Clark deal with 7.2, which is a severe overpay. He's not worth 7.2 right now. So now you're really hamstrung, and now you have both Leo's and Miniyukov's deals ending at the same time. And I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But you have to solidify your defense because you lost John Carlson. You lost Jacob Trouba. You lost your captain Radko Gudas. You lost Olin Zellweger. And you lost Mason McTavish. Kreider's going to probably get traded in the middle of the season. So you're just severely hurting on your roster where I don't think there's a team that's taken a bigger step back than the Ducks. The Ducks aren't going to be in a playoff spot this year, especially after Gauthier signs. And it's getting Gauthier with this offer sheet. This kind of blew up the market. It started with Kaprizov's $17 million deal, and then this one just kind of blew up the market. And now, I don't know how much I believe it, but Yandel said on the Chicklets podcast that Gauthier is not taking less than Carlson. I don't know how much I believe that. Gauthier is a 40 goal scorer. I don't know how much I believe that, especially coming with all due respect from Keith Yandel. So, I don't know. I feel like I wrapped most of the Ducks offseason up. I think Verbeek's known as a very hard negotiator, and that's why they had to trade Zegras and Drysdale. But it's just, whether it's the owner or the GM, it's just a disaster of a situation.
Well, you talked about the Ducks taking a step back and that defense struggling. They lost 3 of the top 10 overall free agents in the NHL that were on their defense to other teams. You had Carlson leaving. He went to Tampa. You had Trouba leaving. I think he went to the Sharks. And then Radko Gudas went back east to Florida. And so all 3 of those guys, very good defenders. Trouba and Gudas, both very physical defenders. So now not only are you losing very big part of your defense, you're losing a very physical part of your team. And especially when it comes to playoffs, that is a very good time to be very physical. And obviously you got to get to the playoffs first, which is going to be a struggle for them this year. But I mean, once you get in, I don't know if they're going to make it through another 7-round series in the West, especially when you've got teams like Vegas, San Jose, who's coming up, who I think is going to be a dark horse for the West this upcoming season, and especially in the seasons to come. And Colorado, throw in Dallas there too. Like, I don't know how Anaheim's going to be able to get into the playoffs, let alone get out of the first round.
On San Jose, early prediction, I think San Jose is going to the Western Conference Final this year. But, because I don't think there's a team that improved more in the offseason than San Jose. But, yeah, it's just been a really bad situation for the Ducks.
All right, so how do you think this, one last thing before we move on, how do you think that the Leo Carlson offer sheet and his $18 million contract is going to affect Jason Robertson, and his contract negotiations? He just signed a 1-year, $12 million deal with the Stars. Obviously, this is a kind of go out and perform, and we'll see how we're going to pay you after the season, or if he's going to find another team that's going to be willing to shovel up the big bucks. But how do you think that the Leo Carlson contract is going to affect kind of these other stars who are looking for a massive payday?
I think it's hard to pay a winger that much money, like Leo Carlson money. Like, I think it's very hard to pay wingers like that, just because finding a winger is a lot easier than finding a a valuable center. Having a 1C is, because the way you win a cup is deep down the middle, good goaltending, and stellar defense in front of the goaltender. That's how you win a Stanley Cup. And so the wingers, you have to get assistive scoring, but it's hard for me to spend $18 million a year on a winger. I think the 1-year, $12 million deal is good for J-Rob, and I think I wouldn't be surprised that the the Stars ship him at the trade deadline and get a hefty return for him. I wouldn't be surprised, especially if his value's up high, where he will be a UFA next year. So you got to get something back for him, unless they wait till the draft, which is possible. But you kind of want to keep the band together, and the value will never be higher at the trade deadline. And I think that's where they're going to make the move, if there is a move to be made. Anything else on Ducks or Stars?
On to the misery of your favorite franchise.
So, kind of just going to do a whole overview of the last 2 months between Detroit and Dylan Larkin. I was, and Briggs knows, I was very unhappy, upset, whatever you want to call it, when Dylan Larkin requested a trade on June 4th. Dylan Larkin's been the captain for a while and been on the team since I really started paying attention to hockey. And now Larkin had been difficult with Yzerman. Obviously, Yzerman and him didn't see eye to eye. You had Larkin calling Yzerman out for the lack of activity at the trade deadline in 2025. He tried to make some moves, overpaid for Justin Falk and a couple other guys. It just wasn't great moves getting older guys that just don't have that same go. And what Steve is allergic to is turn for young guys, and with the exception of Raymond and Sider, and just making the big move when you need to. And that was the thing Bloss, something like that, did when he took over for Tampa, is he made those extra moves to win them a cup, which Steve Yzerman wouldn't do. That was his problem. That's why Yzerman's name's not on a cup as a GM. So Larkin's been difficult. Only gave 3 teams. He ended up bumping it up to 4 with Dallas because Detroit wasn't going to trade him to Florida. Probably wasn't. No one wants to help out Vegas right now. And Minnesota seemed likely, but Detroit wasn't. Minnesota doesn't have anything Detroit would want that Minnesota would part with, because Yzerman didn't want futures because he knew he was GMing for his job. So, and then he opened up to the Stars. The Stars were open to a Robertson and Larkin trade. I didn't think that was going to happen because, one, Yzerman wasn't going to pay Robertson $15 million. It just wasn't going to happen. So, it's been 10 years of not making the playoffs. Yzerman's been there for 7, I believe. 6 or 7. Don't do it. 6 or 7 years. And so, on July 15th, so about a week from today, Yzerman, the Red Wings organization, announces Steve Yzerman's demotion. It's been such an underwhelming tenure, and doing it now, and I understand why they did it now, but there aren't a lot of candidates out there where you're going to have to take an up-and-coming prospect GM to take that gamble. Whereas the Predators just got McFarland at the end of the season, that would have been a pretty solid move. And so the last question I have, and I don't know, I have no idea. And I think it throws a wrench in this entire situation because the fans hate Larkin now because they feel like they give up. I don't feel that way as much, but the fans do. A lot of the general population does. Does it make Larkin want to stay with Yzerman being out of president of hockey ops role? Larkin still got 5 years on his contract, so I don't think you should be in a rush to trade him. And I just don't know. I think it throws a wrench into this, whereas is this new GM going to have to figure out who to trade Larkin? Is he going to get over-aggressive and just trade him for less than what he's worth? Or just trade him for futures, which will put Detroit back already. They're already 2 to 3 years away. And now, are they going to get set back to 5 years away? where they're waiting on maybe Augustine to come up. But there's not any high-end talent in Detroit's prospect pool. There's not. There's no player that has number one center potential in Detroit's prospect pool. At best, maybe Marco Casper, but I just don't see it. I don't see it with Casper. So I could be wrong, but I don't see it for Detroit right now, and they're really going to be struggling with being deep down the middle, which is, like I said, how you win a Stanley Cup. But I'll go ahead and get your take. I'm not as fired up about it a month and some change later, but
So my big thing is, and you've seen, and I know this is a reference that came from basketball, but the Beast of the East, and that has been no different. You've seen Washington. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Washington is gearing up for a finals run. Tampa is still not to be messed with. Buffalo is still on the radar. Montreal is their talent is becoming a little bit more experienced. Florida is kind of taken the Broad Street Bullies title away from Philly, but without the Broad Street. And so you're seeing all of these teams in the East build up and kind of fortify their rosters. Detroit is just kind of meandering and doing nothing. And I think the doing nothing is what's going to kill them in the long run. You mentioned the no playoffs in 10 years. Larkin's only been in the playoffs once. And you talk about.
that was his rookie season.
Mm-hmm, and you talk about, like, when we were in the Olympics and the Four Nations, how pivotal of a role Larkin played on those teams. And so you look at him and he's like, if I was him, I'd want to get in the playoffs. I want my name on the cup. Every NHLer wants their name on the cup. And to be a part of a franchise that has done diddly squat and trying to get anywhere close to it has got to be frustrating.
It's how bad did it have to be that you ran your Michigan-born captain out of Detroit? That's crazy to me. You ran the Michigan-born guy. And it's not like, why is Detroit such an undesirable place? You know how many players live in Michigan in the offseason? It's such a desirable. The U.S. Development team's headquarters is there in Michigan. I don't understand how Detroit has become such an unvaluable place over the years. And part of that's due to Stevie Y. Part of it was Holland signing horrendous contracts to keep the ship going. In Larkin's only year, they got swept by the Lightning in 2015, 2016 season.
Yes.
So they get swept by the Lightning that year. So Larkin's never won a playoff game. Now, I do think Larkin's better suited on a team that he's a number 2 center on, but he can be a 1 center. I'm done with it. There's not a lot that's going to make the fan base happy in general, but it's just, how bad did it have to be that you ran your Michigan-born captain out, and now you're never going to, like, it will never be the same even if he comes back.
So here's a big question for you. What are your thoughts on he potentially gets dealt, but like a team like Buffalo, where Larkin, I think, would be a good number 2 guy in center, especially after Tuck left. But I don't think Tuck was a center, but still, they need that offensive help, especially with the veteran. Being able to kind of get them in that playoff team last year, kind of help them get over the hump a little bit. Do you think that's a good match? And he's still kind of in that northeast corridor.
What would Buffalo give Detroit, though?
No idea.
That's the thing, is Buffalo doesn't have the assets.
I don't know if
the way Detroit's thinking is they want things that are right now. That's why that trade, it's not going to happen. As long as Detroit's in the mindset of, one, it would require Larkin to waive his no-move clause to go to Buffalo. And evidently he doesn't want to go. Whatever. 2, it would require Buffalo to have assets that they're willing to give. And I just don't I don't really see that. Unless, like, maybe an Owen Power, if he ever wanted to leave to be a number one defenseman, over Darlene. But there's not. Buffalo, and we can probably talk about Buffalo next episode, where Buffalo gave away all their assets that are tradable. Like, I could have seen
So,
before the free agency, maybe Tuck and, like, a first and a prospect. But even, like, the first this year. But even then, especially the number 4 pick, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. The one that Chicago gave to Buffalo, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. Tuck a first and a prospect, I would have taken that. Especially without the security of Tuck re-signing, I would have taken that easily.
so I think another player for Detroit skipping town, Kaner, Patrick Kane, unsigned free agent. Kind of, I don't think really has any interest in returning to Detroit. Um, and so, how do you think him? I mean, he was what, fifth? Yeah, he finished fifth last year on the team in points with 57, 16 goals, 41 assists. Um, like
So
you're
I
losing
think
another.
that's on the front office. I don't think they offered him. I don't know if they gave him an offer because I think he wanted a bag, and Detroit wasn't willing to give him it. Either way, they're gonna have. We have 20. The Wings have $20 million in cap, so I don't understand why they don't just throw him a 1 year, $12 million deal. What does it matter? I don't see the problem. I don't really care. I mean, throw him or a 2 year, like, $8 million deal. What does it matter? You have your two core pieces locked up for a long time, and no one else is going to get close to, like, more than, like, 8 million. And there's no one on that roster that's going to demand like that. There's no one coming up like that. So I the only two players that are worth 10 million plus are, you could argue to Brinket, even though I think he's fine at like 9.5, but it's Raymond and Sider. That's it. So I would have
DeBrinket,
thrown Kane a bunch of
I
money.
mean, DeBrinket was over a point per game last year. Um, yeah, he was 85 points in 82 games, which is a hell of a season for a right winger.
And I think he had 30 goals at least.
41
Okay. I didn't want to
and
misspeak and say it
44,
was 40.
41 apples there too. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how everything in Motown shapes out. But I don't know. I think Yzerman
They're
is,
still 5 years away. I would be
yeah.
surprised if they make the playoffs before 2030 at this rate. I just think they're so far back. They don't have the goaltending. Defense is still bad. I don't think McClellan is the guy, but it's just kind of just it. They are now the Buffalo Sabres, where it's gonna be a 14-year drought again, and that's just what it is. There's
So
nothing else to say.
moving on to a team that does have actual playoff hopes and implications in mind. The Washington Capitals, they re-signed Ovechkin to a 1 year, like $4 million, $5 million deal. Um, they quite the moves here in the offseason. Obviously, they signed Alex or involved in the sign and trade for Alex Tuck, 8 years, $10.5 million AAV,
Whew.
which that's a lot of money. But it's going to be, I mean, especially as you talk about the cap increasing and the post Ovechkin era, which is going to be big. Um, quick thoughts on that general contract.
That's a rich contract. 10.5 for Alex
Yeah,
Tuck. Even with the 18 million, that was a very expensive contract. But I don't see Tuck becoming worth that 10.5 mil. I just don't see it yet. And Tuck did a lot. I don't think he has that top end scoring for that amount of money that Washington's going to need. And maybe they're trying to make Tuck into taking in this Ovi role. I think I've said this to you, where with this and all the other moves they made, maybe Ovechkin cannot play the first line this year, and he can get second and third line minutes where they can transition him out during the regular season and keep him healthy, being 41 years old.
And a very good point there. Quick, do you remember the 2018 Stanley Cup Finals? Arguably one of the greatest saves in finals history, with Holtby coming across the crease and making a paddle save on Alex Tuck. A very full circle moment for him. I know he's made some comments about that. But I think you talk about him not, I guess, living up and meeting the expectations of a $10.5 million contract. And I'd point out the Dylan Strome. Why there was some skepticism around Washington paying him a couple of years ago, and he has fit well, and Carberry has kind of really brought him out as a diamond in the rough, and kind of really fitting into that Nicholas Backstrom role that we saw the Backstrom and Ovechkin duo for the last decade and a half, leading up until Backstrom's exit a couple of years ago. So I have full faith in the Caps front office and Carberry for what they've done so far with a couple of these kind of unknown names. And so I'm interested to see what we're going to get out of Alex Tuck. Another big name, Boone Jenner, coming in on a 4-year, $5.75 million deal. I thought that was a little bit of an overpay with only
He was
30,
a captain, though.
Yeah, 38 points last
Captain
season.
of the Jackets.
13 goals, 25 assists. So another kind of veteran presence in that room. Not that there isn't a lot of it already, but I think this is going to be more of like the Ilya Kovalchuk signing that Washington had a couple years ago, where veteran name, but I don't know how much he's going to actually do. Like, I was so happy that we got Kovalchuk and it was like, oh, sweet. And then dude just played 2 seasons for us and did, again, diddly squat. Not much going on there. And then
Hold on. Before you trash Boone Jenner's name, first off, he will be on the number 1 penalty kill. I'm willing to bet you that. They brought him in for the defense. The number 1 penalty kill, the third line, I want to say center, but third line forward, like checking line forward to match up. I think in that captain experience where he's led Columbus before, the team is Columbus is a weird thing, but and I'll say this real quick. Carberry's been very good since he got to Washington about squeezing all the juice out of the orange. And like, to make a comparison, it's like a Kirby Smart type thing where Kirby Smart knows how to squeeze the juice out of the orange. I think that's what you're gonna get with Jordan Kyrou as well. And foreshadowing here. I'll let you take it because it's your team, but I can't let you trash Boone Jenner like that.
I don't know. We've seen this before, so we'll see how it shapes out. But again, I think you're paying for the name, and you talk about the defensive abilities. I think Washington's got a pretty good defensive forwards in Alexi Protas, who's got that. I think he's a 6'7", 6'8" guy. He's massive dude, has massive reach, and especially as a forward getting back, he has that ability to kind of just stipend guys at the center ice area. And so you got that. And then they also brought in Timothy Liljegren. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that last name right. Vincent Desjardins, Justin Hall, and then the Jordan Kyrou signing, which I don't know how big his contract is, but
it wasn't a signing. It was just a trade.
It was a trade. I don't know how big his contract is relative to what the cap it's going to be.
I think it was 5x8 when they signed him. Might have been 7x8. Hold on, I'll look. Keep talking.
Not a bad deal. 18 goals, 28 assists last season in St. Louis. So obviously they've brought in a lot of help, both offensively and defensively, and solid, very solid goaltending with Logan Thompson. Um, I'm
That
okay if yes, I thought that they moved Charlie Lindgren, but CBS still has him on the
no,
depth chart here.
they didn't move him.
Um, they didn't move him. I I don't want to say I've had it with him. He's been, I mean, he's a good number two guy. He's consistent, but we have guys coming up with Clay Stevenson, who's a very good um, guy down the AHL, but I've seen it too many times where Lindgren will blow a game. And it's frustrating, especially once you get kind of late season and Thompson needs a break to see us drop stupid games with him in between the pipes. So it'll
So
be interesting to.
on Lindgren, because so I have heard just through publicly available sources that they didn't move him because he was a very big motivator for Logan Thompson, and Thompson wanted him there, so they kind of decided to not move him, and he helped get Thompson to squeeze the juice out of the orange, like I said.
So I didn't know that, but if it's gonna help Logan Thompson, then obviously I'm good with it. I mean, dude is a beast in net. Um, but I'm interested to see you talk about them phasing out Ovechkin. I don't think that the public in Washington will allow them to play him on the second or third line. Given we've seen him in instances where he'll go out with the second and third line, but it might only be for a shift or two in a game. I don't think we'll see him consistently dropping back. Just because it's, hey, this has been our guy for 18. And I realize how bad that is long term, and how it's like, okay, we really want to kind of see, okay, these are our next guys up. We need to kind of solidify these not matchups, but these connections, and kind of see, okay, what is life going to look like after this season when he inevitably goes back to Russia. But I think Washington's going to do him the respect of, hey, he's signed, he's going to kind of play on that top line. But it'll be very interesting to see how because Ryan Leonard, um, Caps drafted him a couple years ago. Is another massive USA product who I think is going to be a big part of these U.S. Olympic teams going forward. Um, it'll be interesting to see how he fills into that Ovechkin role on the right wing next year. But I think Washington has done very well this offseason, and kind of looking to make it back to the postseason. And you look at the West last year and teams that made it into the playoffs. I think there were 6 or 7. I'm not doing it. Teams in the East that had better records than a couple of the teams in the West that made it in, and those teams in the East did not. So it'll be very interesting to see what that number is points wise to get in, and whether or not Washington can kind of squeeze in.
Oh, a couple more notes before I move on. On the Kyrie contract, he signed 8 by 8.1. He's going into the 4th year of his contract this year. 2, I don't think Carberry should give a damn what the fans think, whether it's doing OV on the first or second line. I don't think OV can go on the first line anymore. They had to have him on the first line because they couldn't score last year. They're gonna score this year. I'm telling you, Washington is not gonna have to worry about scoring this year. They will be able to score. They really struggled to score goals this year. That's why they had to have OV on the first line. So if I'm Carberry, I don't give a shit about what the fans think or what the organization thinks. If it's not best for the team, Ovi should not be playing on the first line. I don't care. Ovi should probably be a second line player. 1, so you keep him healthy all year. Good. 2, so that way you're not running him down through an 82 game season. I would rather see Ovi on the second or third line than see him taking days off like we see in the NBA.
I would agree with that.
Moving on, because we're running out of time right now. We're gonna briefly
Um,
recap the World Cup. Where it's 10 minutes, so subtract 10 minutes.
yeah.
So I'm just gonna name off a couple of headlines that are worth noting. Spain had a incredibly dominant run. Congrats to Spain on winning it all. Dominant run, only gave up one goal the entire tournament. Their goalie only had to make 11 saves the entire tournament. 10 or 11 saves, I can't remember what that was. It just insane. Incredible defense. The World Cup coming to America shattered attendance and viewership numbers. Good on America. Good on all these people coming to America and really enjoying it, enjoying the American culture and whatnot. And then it's probably Messi and Ronaldo's last dance. So congrats to them on tremendous careers. Mbappe, 27 years old, has already broken the goal record. And I do think America has improved, but has to be better for the culture of soccer to really come into the United States. I think there's hope, and we had hope as a country for a little bit, but it's got to be better, especially come Olympics time in 2028. Briggs, your thoughts
So
on World Cup?
I compiled a list of winners and losers. I'm going to start with the winners, and I'm going to start with Messi. You talked about him being this possibly his last. I think he may have one more in him. And we've seen a lot of these older kind of mega stars. You look at LeBron, he's in his 40s. Ovechkin, obviously, he's going into his last year, but he's still playing well longer. Brady was playing in his 40s. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see, and you looked at him out there, and he's, what, 39, 40-ish now?
39.
38, 39. He's in that area. But you saw him playing against England where they had 4 or 5 guys on him, and he just boom, 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 dribbled it right through him. And his ability to still hold guys off, even with his such small stature, I, I I think he may have one more in him. Um, so my other winner, Spain. You talked about them having only 10 or 11 saves. Um, I think it was Emi Martinez, the goaltender for Argentina, had I think 11 saves in the World Cup final. 11 or 12. He broke the record for most saves in a World Cup final. So obviously that's just an impressive stat, but on both ends for Spain only having 11 saves the entire thing, and then Argentina having 11 saves in the final. Cape Verde, the only team in the World Cup to not lose to Spain. Um, and then took Argentina to extra time, and they are the did you know they are the smallest nation by population to make it to the World Cup knockout stage?
Sorry?
They are the smallest nation by Cape Verde is the smallest population
Oh, yeah, yeah.
country to make the knockout stage. And then honorable mention for the winners, I had Norway. Exceeded expectations, knocked out Brazil in the round of 16 and reached the quarterfinals, and then kind of showed that this team, this group of guys they have now, can kind of go and compete with the best. I think they were knocked out by France, if I remember correctly. But on to the losers. I'm going to start with the big elephant in the room, especially as Americans. The United States and Pulisic. Pulisic mainly in that round of 16 game against Belgium. When we needed him most, he kind of, I don't want to say wimped out, but just gave up. I think he may have had something broken possibly in his ankle. I'm not 100% sure, but the effort that I saw from him and the turnovers, just a sloppy play in that game, unacceptable. You talked about the U.S. need to perform more if soccer culture is going to come in. I think it's growing in the United States. I don't know if it's ever going to be able to compete with the footballs, the baseball. Just in the U.S., I know soccer is one of the most dominant country like sports in the world just because it's so easy to play kind of anywhere, and the ability to just kind of kick a ball around on the street, in your yard, whatever. I just don't know if it's going to match that level of popularity in the U.S. Brazil, they were expected to compete for a title, and then really they got beat 2-0. That late last second penalty for Neymar was kind of a, I don't want to say sham, but questionable. And then Germany knocked out in the round of 32 on a PK loss to Paraguay, who the U.S. spanked in the group stage. So obviously very disappointing for them after they won the World Cup 2 tournaments ago. So it was very interesting to see kind of how everyone moves forward. And then a lot of these guys in the U.S. team, this like their next one might be their last for a lot of these guys. Pulisic's in his mid to late 20s. I think Balogun, another one of those guys in mid to late 20s. Tim Ream, late 20s. So a lot of those guys are kind of at the age where their next one will be when they're 33, 34, 35. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where the U.S. goes and what young talent we have coming up underneath us or underneath them.
All right, moving on. And, we have to dance on this parade. Even though I called for this 3-4 months ago, whenever we recorded this, Warde Manuel is going to step down. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the end of the year. And so we mentioned the probe that the Wolverines were doing into their athletic department. Spent $12 million on this probe to go through it. And it was conducted by an independent law firm. If you haven't seen that, I want to say it was in the late 30s on episodes. I can't remember which one. But so the probe conducted by the independent law firm revealed, quote, serious concerns that require immediate action, and also found Manuel failed to quickly and effectively act on allegations brought to athletic department employees. Warde Manuel was there for the 2023 football, 2026 men's basketball, a men's and women's gymnastic natty, and 5 Frozen Four appearances by the men's hockey team. And we went through all the scandals a couple of months ago on Manuel. It was right after the Sharon Moore thing. And I'll get to that in a second. He had over 12 scandals, and there's probably more. I counted 12 on what I had written down back in that episode. Over 10 years. He took over in 2016. So, yeah, he brought 4 national championships to the university, but he also could not get out of his own way with controversy. And it was a surprise, especially with the Dusty May exit, where this didn't happen sooner. But this interesting little tidbit that I told you I had found yesterday. So this investigation uncovered a note. What the investigation revealed, I'll preface this, that there was no smoking gun, quote unquote, from the Sharon Moore thing. And it started with the Sharon Moore to see if any athletic department employee knew about the relationship. It said that it did not find that any employees had evidence and knew about it. And then the university asked it to expand broader. So, going in, this is from, I want to say, CBS. I could be wrong, though. The investigation uncovered a note from Manuel written 2 days before Moore's head coaching debut in 2024, documenting a conversation in which he instructed Moore not to travel with Shiver, who was his mistress, according to the Wall Street Journal. 2 program sources speaking on the condition of anonymity because School Up North had not released the Jenner and Block findings, said their human resources department received a complaint during Moore's first preseason camp after players and staff observed Moore and Shiver working out together in the Wolverines' weight room. The Wolverines released a summary of the Jenner and Block findings, but has denied FOI requests for the full report, citing attorney-client privilege. I cannot read. It's been a long day. But they won't release all the findings, which part of me thinks that they may be lying about some of it. And it kind of sounds like they knew. It kind of sounds like Warde Manuel knew. Where he instructed Moore, quote, documenting a conversation which he instructed Moore not to travel with Shiver. It sounds like they knew. And it sounds like this has been going on for a while, back in the Jim Harbaugh days. Am I crazy? It sounds like they knew. So, what are we talking about? I kind of think they're lying. Which I wouldn't put it past. I mean, we have to cheat for our national championships and hire like sexual offenders and let our offensive coordinator go through, or our quarterback's coach go through student files, specifically females. We had a bunch of creeps working in the athletic department. It sounds like you're lying, and you won't release the findings because you know you're lying. And this new president just got in, so he doesn't want it to come down on him. That's why he made this decision to force Manuel out, because he's not stepping down. It was a sign a resignation at the end of the year. God forbid we interrupt football, or you're fired at the end of the year. That's what it was. So miss me with this Michigan man bullshit again, and just admit you're scum. Because you knew. You knew about all the cheating. You knew about all of this. Like, come on. Like, if you can read the tea leaves, you know that they knew, and they're just lying to save face, which I would expect any university to do that. But I'm just going to dance on the parade because of this, right here? Like, I'm going to dance on the parade. I'm not going to hide my biases, but come on now. Just say the quiet, like, especially as a new president, just say the quiet part out loud. Like, yeah, he knew. That's why we're firing him. But they don't want to interrupt football season. And they didn't want to interrupt the coaching search for men's basketball. So they went and lied. And they don't want to interrupt any of the seasons this year because they have a chance to go win a natty in basketball and football and in hockey and all the other sports. It boggles the mind at just how we just admit the fact that we're lying. We're just lying consistently. And if you can read between the lines, you can tell it's a lie. And I'd rather you just come out and say it. I would say the same thing if it was Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, South Carolina. I don't care. Like, just stop lying. Just say the quiet part out loud.
So, I don't know if there's a market for this yet, but over under half a scandal between right now, July 22nd, when this is being recorded, and December 31st for Michigan.
I would say probably a suspension, a rules violation, something. I wouldn't be surprised. I would probably vote the over. We'll probably find out Dusty May left because of Manuel. That's why the former quarterback from the Wolverines, I can't remember who it was, but he had said that May was leaving because of Manuel. I don't know how true it is, but it kind of makes sense. So, it was from an Instagram post. I don't know how reliable of a source that is, but kind of makes sense.
In this day and age, Instagram 100% true every single time.
Yeah, that's where I stand on it. You probably didn't need to watch this to know where I stand on it, but any parting thoughts with that or anything else?
No, I think you pretty much covered that in its entirety.
All right, well, we thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, follow the socials. They'll all be linked down below. Really appreciate you. We will be back hopefully this week or next week. Knock on wood. But we'll see y'all next time. Have a great weekend and God bless.